Welcome to Lifting Leaders Podcast. This season, we're exploring what it means to light the spark, ignite genuine hope, and lead the change. And today we're doing a GEMS episode following up on our really fantastic interview with Barbara Visser. And so we really encourage you to go back and listen to that episode, especially if you are inspired or intrigued by what we talk about today. But this is a GEMS episode, so we're leveraging what we learned from Barb and going a little bit deeper on some particular aspects of listening deeper, which is a really important part of finding our spark, lighting our spark. Welcome, Trisha. As you can tell, we're still figuring out our opening when we're not relying on our traditional opening.
But I think you're doing really well. It's hard, you know. We are actually making a big shift this year, right? And it's not really. I mean, when you think about hope being something that has been a big focus for us, and it's going to be a focus for us a little bit later on, you know, this year. It always exists, right? But trying to get our words in order to talk about why we're here and what we're doing today, we'll get better at it. I say probably about July.
Yeah. But really today is about going deeper on the importance and how we can do it as leaders, since we're all leaders, how we can listen more deeply.
Yeah, it's so important. You know, people think that is kind of fluff sometimes. I've heard people say, yeah, listening skills. And it's like, do you know what listening skills are? You know, because that's how we communicate. It is the foundation of communicating, right? If I have to, I can talk, but if I'm not hearing feedback, I have no conversation, right? There is no conversation unless I want to talk about the ones that are in my head talking with me, right?
Yeah.
My saboteurs, right? Going to town. But listening is so critically important, and the kind of listening you do is even more important, right? There are different kinds of listening. And I think what Barb was talking about was getting into those deeper levels of you know, foundational listening so that you really can see, you can almost visualize what's happening, right?
Yeah.
So
and really moving beyond what most of us sort of sit at is listening to fix. So we're listening long enough to others to kind of understand our own perspective, and we hear the first few sentences of what people are saying, and then we're off and running with our own ideas, and we haven't really given the person the attention and really haven't sort of suspended our own thinking until we hear the person out to all of what they have to say.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think listening to fix is one of those ways that we listen, but I think also I used to do values training, and the company that I got certified through used the levels of listening as if it was like the ladder of inference kind of thing, right? And the two lowest rungs on the ladder were listening to argue.
Yeah.
So you're already set up, you're going to like not agree with something, right? And or listening to tell your story. So you might tell me that you just got back from a trip to Hawaii, and I've stopped listening to you at that point when you were going to tell me what you did with the turtles at the Turtle Bay, right? And I'm going, oh, I remember when we went to Hawaii. We went to Maui, and we were like looking at that Haleakala, and we rode our bikes up there, but then I couldn't ride my bike back down, and I've completely lost you. You're gone because my story is the only thing I can talk about, right?
Yeah.
But my listening stopped. That's listening to tell my story. I'm waiting for a cue, something that sparks or triggers me to tell my story. And I hear that a lot. I hear it a lot. And I've found myself doing that before. So it's like when I do that and I recognize I just did it, I have my own little, battle inside my head for a minute saying, why did you do that? Why was that important?
Yeah, and I think the natural place to go with that too is we think we're building connection. It's like, oh, I have something that's similar to what you went through. But what we don't recognize is we've actually shut that person down.
Exactly.
And so you haven't really built that connection because they're really wanting to be heard. And maybe at the end, when they've finished what their thought was, then creating that connection through something, sharing a similar story, or, oh yeah, I've been to that beach as well, and wasn't that beautiful? But just jumping in with your own story without any connection to what that person was sort of trying to get to with their story breaks down that trust.
It's something that I have heard a lot in my career, and in healthcare a lot. I won't say healthcare is famous for that, but there is that desire, as you were talking about, for connection among sometimes nurses or care coordinators and things. And so you will see them at lunch doing one person going, kind of tilt their head sideways, and you can almost visualize them saying, really? Right now, do I have to listen to this? I was just telling you something.
Yeah.
And the other person is just on a roll going, oh yeah, and then we did this, and we went go-karting, and and the other person has completely disengaged. And so it's that rapport that gets lost, and then you have to build it again.
Yeah.
So, to your point, wait until the end or something, and then share a common thought or something about whatever that other person's story is.
Yeah.
And the risk is that if you lost them, you may not get them back. Or they may not come back and tell you about their next vacation or something, because they know they're going to have that kind of experience maybe, or they might fear that they'll have that kind of experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we talked a little bit about also that when we're trying to build connection, it's really about staying present with what is, and that's what that person is bringing in their story.
Right.
So even going one step beyond the listening, waiting till the end, is to ask them a question, an open-ended question about, wow, what was your favorite thing? Or I really heard you get excited about telling me about swimming with the turtles. Tell me more about that. That sounds frightening or exciting or peaceful, and then encouraging the person to continue to tell their story. And that's where you're staying seated in your curiosity.
Right. No, it's true. And you just used the word curiosity. And we were talking before the podcast about that word, right? And one of the things that, the first listening piece that you were talking about was listening to fix, right? And sometimes people come with a problem, or they come with an issue, and they need somebody to hear them. They may not need it to be fixed, but they need somebody to hear them out, because I don't know about you, but I sometimes have to say something out loud before it becomes a reality for me or whatever. It's like, okay, I heard it. It really sounds outrageous. Okay, let's forget about it. Or that sounds like a challenge, so how am I going to get through that, right? How am I going to work my way through it? But I have to say it. And I don't want, if I'm going to say it to you, I don't want you coming back to me and saying, well, why don't you do this and this and this? And you've just given me steps. And yeah, I love that you gave me steps, but I don't want you to fix it. I'm just trying to mull it over in my head, and I need to say something out loud, So, and I think that often happens with couples, or people who care about each other, sisters and brothers even, it's like, I don't need you to fix, I just need you to listen for a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. And the important part about that is being able to communicate that for yourself, to say, hey, I just would really love for you to listen as I kind of work this out. Or if you're the listener, to ask that question, do you need me just to listen, or would you like some advice or some help figuring this out? Really important for leaders as they talk with their staff, being able to hold this notion of that the person is capable, but being open to what do they need? Do they need to just talk it through? Do you need to ask some questions that will help them get to their own solution, encourage them to come up with their own solution? Or maybe they are brand new at this, don't have any idea what they're doing, and they really do need some help to get to a quicker answer for them.
I love that you mentioned that. And as a leader, I really do feel that's important for the leader to recognize when someone comes into their office, into a leader's office, and wants to talk about something, finding out what the expectation is for the leader. What do you expect? What are you looking for? Are you looking for, do you want to bat ideas around? Do you just want to run something by me and get a reaction? Or are you just trying to, visualize or openly talk about something so that you can it'll make sense to you more if you do that. I'm willing to do all of it, and just let me know what my role is, and I will do that. I love that idea. And I think it's good for our leaders who are informal leaders who are doing that. They're going into their formal leader's office and trying that, because they may not know they have that option.
Yeah.
And so that requires a level of rapport too. That requires that there's relationship there.
Yeah.
So that then is another challenge for leaders to practice really good deep listening and not judging and not, jumping in with your own story, but to be there and listen to people, and so they can see it in action. I think if you demonstrate what you want others to do, they're going to learn to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it takes self-discipline.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Barbara brought up, and I kind of laughed, I thought it's so true, is we have to be self-aware enough to know when we're getting hooked by that easy path to fix it for someone. We think, we know the answer. I know the answer. It's like the little kindergartner sitting in the classroom, waving their hand and like, pick me. Yeah, pick me. I know the answer.
Of course, none of our listeners were those people. I was.
Yeah. So how do we gain the awareness? And that's really just staying present with what's going on. How do we suspend those thoughts of I can fix it. And part of that is recognizing that my fix might not be the right fix for them.
Right.
It's the right fix for me, but it's not necessarily for them. They may have some new way to do it based on what they're bringing to the job. Mm-hmm. And our job as the leader is to help them discover that.
One of the things we talked about with Barb was the importance of curiosity as a leadership practice. And we just talked about it a little bit before, but she said something that I thought was really interesting, and encouraging people to slow down, take a pause, right? And engage your curiosity, because that is the antidote to judgment.
Yeah.
And as leaders, so often a big part of the job is, or has been in the past, about judgment. Making a judgment, right?
Yeah.
You've got to make a decision. We've got to go, or is that good or is that bad? Or did we do that well or did we not, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a real challenge for a leader, to stay curious and not jump to judgment, just like you said, not jump to fix, right?
Yeah.
And so I agree with that. When we were talking earlier, I was saying that I have been in situations where people have come to me and asked me to stay curious when they wanted to tell me something. And you and I were talking, and you brought up a really good point about how that implies that the person who is asking me to be curious already has a judgment in their head about how I might react to what they say. So they're already setting me up, because now I'm wondering, do we have the trust? Is trust broken here? Or why are you setting me up to stay curious? What are you going to tell me? And then I start almost being judgmental, in the process. So it's all about, and can you share what you said instead of saying stay curious? It was, I have something that's maybe going to be uncomfortable to say or something, and I just...
Yeah, I think it's coming from more of a compassionate perspective. Sometimes when we have difficult news to deliver or feedback to give, being able to preface it with, this may be difficult to hear, or this may not be what you were expecting. And thinking about, you've been sharing a lot about your experience right now with performance ratings. Mm-hmm. And that's such a tough thing, I think, for leaders. And it depends on the system that you use. But a lot of times people want to see themselves as being superstars.
Right.
And not everybody is a superstar. But we want this process to be motivating, not demotivating. But still, you're going to know what this person, either through conversation or having them do their self-assessment, so you know how they're viewing their year. And you may have viewed it very differently. And so being able to say, listen, that everything you said, I agree with, and this is going to be difficult to hear because it's not what you're expecting.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're going to be happy about it, but it does mean that the compassionate part is letting them know that you do understand that this is going to be hard to hear, and maybe that we can talk about it, but being honest about what that level of interaction, or whether you are open to seeing things in a different way. But the point is more about, it's okay to preface something if it's coming from compassion.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, it's just, it's a great alternative to saying, to someone telling you to please be curious.
Yeah.
Stay curious. Yeah. It's like, for what?
It's almost like when somebody tells you to calm down. It's like,
yes.
Can you calm down? It's like, no.
And here's what I have to say about that.
I'm not going to calm down. It's about as effective as that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But ultimately, as a leader, sitting in that curiosity, which means suspending judgment and using curiosity as a tool to suspend that judgment. That's what Barbara was talking about. And
exactly.
I think it's very effective.
Yeah. And I think really it is something that we've even talked about and alluded to in a sense, and that's your level of listening, or the way you define things, right? So if you say curiosity and I say curiosity, we may not be thinking about the exact same thing. And so it's really important to check in, right? Check in and stop for a moment. And if the other person reacts in a way that is not really in alignment with what you thought you would receive in terms of a feedback, it may be that they have a different definition of what you're asking or what you're talking about. So that's always another thing. That's the conversation. It's like listening. Okay, am I hearing you? Is your body language in alignment with what you're saying or whatever, so that I can see if maybe I'm off base in terms of the same word, or the same phrase. It's important.
Yeah.
And when we were listening to Barb, one of the things, she's a doula, and she has to really listen because people are women are in distress at that point. So in some cases, they may be happy about the moment of having a baby, but they may be in complete distress. And not ever having children, I don't know that, but I've heard. So it's important to keep that open mind of, I have no judgment, I have no anything. I know myself. If I want to jump in, and I normally might, I need to hold that space and just know that I can go there, but that I'm not going to go there because this person needs me right now.
Yeah. And what's the outcome of the judgment? How does that impact how I relate to you? I was thinking, as you're talking about the doula, if the doula was to say, we're not even a third of the way there yet, and so you need just to buck up because you think that's pain. We got a lot coming, like that's not going to build trust. That's not going to build that relationship.
Well, and it's certainly not going to give you, make you want to be engaged for this. It's like, get it over with.
Yeah.
Right?
So even we think about in the work setting, people have different tolerances for different things. And so judging that doesn't help us get to helping the person actually deal with whatever that situation is. It could be an upset customer, or the customer said something that really made them upset. And when they share their story as a leader, you're like, that's nothing compared to, what I've had to deal with, like, or what's coming, I don't know, in the future. So, but at the moment, that person is really upset. So how do we connect with them in a way that helps them to recover from that?
Right.
And that's not judgment. It's about compassion.
And that comes that comes into play for a lot of different situations. I had a recent experience with someone that I had to take to a train station, and this person is usually pretty laid back, and I thought we had this major rapport for, and we have a good rapport. But we were late because there was flooding that was going on in our area. The weather was terrible, and we had closed off roads, and we were forced to go in different areas, and this person missed their train. And from the time we found out that the first road was closed and we had to go the second, the anxiety started coming out in like constant barrage of, oh, we're not going to make it. Oh, I'm going to be I can't do this. I don't want to have to pay for another, and it was like that for the 2 hours, and I think it was 2.5 hours. We're 20 miles away, 2.5 hours to get to that station. And I was fried, but I was trying not to react because I knew that that person was reacting, and it doesn't do any good to react with them. But that's something that leaders would be wise to keep in mind too, because we may think, we see people every day and we may think we know their demeanor. We know that they're always going to be, totally cool as a cucumber, or they're going to take things well, or change isn't a big deal, or maybe they were going to react a little bit, but they'll come back. But in a different situation where they feel threatened, or they feel that they're going to lose something, or they have fear that comes into play, you have to be ready to listen to those cues so that you know how to respond, and sometimes the only response is to just stay quiet and let them work through it, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to share that because it's different. It's not an everyday thing, but people go through crises, and we don't leave our home at work.
Yeah.
Or home at home and not bring it to work. We do live a full life now where home and work intersect a lot, and people have to be able to let their hair down once in a while and say things or react in ways that we may not be used to. When I was young in my career, that was not acceptable. You did not do that. If you reacted strangely and your boss was around, you could really suffer for that. Your career could suffer if it was bad enough. And we don't see that so much anymore because we've been through a lot, and we're all still going through a lot, right?
Yeah. So today, as we kind of bring this episode of deep listening to a close, what would be your advice to a coaching client or a leader who's struggling in this really high pressure, busy environment that we're in, the ability to listen deeply?
I think there's a lot to unpack with that question, but part of it is that I think there's, once again, we both have talked about this a lot, being vulnerable with your team or with people on your team, and just letting them know that, that they do have a sounding board, or they do have someone who's going to listen to them, really listen, not to argue or anything, so that they can put that to the test. For one thing, they're probably going to want to, but also to share with them so that they know that they might have a good sounding board, but also to do it, to demonstrate it. Try your skills at saying, what do you want from this? What is my role in this? Tell me what you want me to do, and then do it, and see how it plays out. I think it'll do volumes for their ability to gain trust and rapport with their employees. And then, I don't like the word curious anymore, but do stay curious. Try not to jump to a response. Let people finish what they're talking about, because it may change your whole response, right? You may think you're going down one road, and that was beating around the bush to get to a different road. And a lot of people do that. I do that myself, right? Set the stage, right? So anyway, that kind of thing is really important. But just know that, you're in a position, leaders are in a position where listening is more important than talking.
Yeah.
How about you, Crystal? What would be your sage advice for someone, because you have it, you live in a world right now where that's a big deal. Listening is a huge part of your career. Right?
Yeah. So. Yeah. I think my advice to leaders is that we need to, in order to be fully present with the people around us, we have to take care of ourselves. So if we're showing up really dysregulated, if we're showing up with a busy mind, if we're having trouble letting go of the meeting that we just came out of, which might be upsetting or may have been a difficult meeting, and now because we're all in back-to-back meetings, I'm having to make this mental shift into my one-on-one meeting. And so what is it that you need to do to put into place some practices that will help you to be your best, to show up the way that you want to show up for this person who is now in front of you, so that you can listen? And so I think whatever it takes, and I was really inspired by the Olympics this year, and Amy Liu took the gold for the women's figure skating. And one of the things that she did is she took a big break in the middle of her career. And when she came back because she found her spark. Mm. She found the joy again in skating, and it changed everything for her. So she came with this spirit of love for the sport, and she skated with joy, and it made such a difference. And she still had to do all the hard work. It was all there, but she came to it with a different heart. And because she was strong enough, courageous enough to take the break that she needed to take care of herself. And so my advice to leaders is take the break. If you need to take a break, even if it's just standing up out of your chair and walking around the room and sitting back down so that you can be present for who's coming into your office, whatever it is you can do to be kind to yourself so that you can show up in your best self with that new person.
I love that. In fact, I think that's probably going to be somewhat of a mantra through this whole year, because that's one thing that we don't need to give permission to leaders to do that, but we need to tell leaders to do that once in a while, right? Because we get so busy and we let all those silly things that aren't really priorities, that are mixed in with our priorities, get in our heads. And then we forget that if you don't recharge your battery, right? If you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of others?
Yeah.
How can you be there for them?
Yeah.
Right.
And to sort of jump off of what you were saying with the vulnerability is don't hide that. Mm-mm. So by sharing what you're doing to stay present, it allows and sort of unleashes those people around you to do the same thing. It gives them permission. And so you end up with this really cool environment of people who are being present, showing up for each other.
And authentic, right?
Authentically, yeah.
Wow. That's something that I hope we're seeing more and more of. People are starting to be more real with each other, and it's time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
So many gems from that episode with Barbara. We didn't even really scratch the surface on that. So I really hope that you go back and listen to that episode as well.
Episode.
Yeah.
So before we go, we invite you to pause for just a moment and ask yourself, what spark was lit for me today, and where can I take one small, meaningful action? This year, our focus is clear. Light the spark, ignite genuine hope, and lead the change. Because hope isn't passive. It's something we practice through intentional, everyday choices. Leadership begins when we take what resonates and allow it to shape how we show up for others. And if this episode resonated with you, share it on your social media so the spark can travel even further. We hope you will keep listening because we have more exceptional podcast episodes coming up with more fantastic guests. So be sure to subscribe to Lifting Leaders Podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. If you're looking for help in developing your leaders or would like a growth opportunity yourself, please contact us through our website at www.liftingleaderspodcast.com. Thank you to Ari Chance Roberts for his technical support of our show. Finally, please take 30 seconds to follow us. It helps you because you never miss an episode, and it helps us because
you never miss an episode.
To follow us, go to Lifting Leaders Podcast Show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Then just tap the plus sign in the upper right corner or click on follow. While you're there, if you'd be willing to give us a 5-star rating and review and share the episode with a friend, we'd be so grateful. Thank you, Crystal, for bringing some more insights to this GEMS episode. It was wonderful.
This was a great conversation.
Many thanks to you, our listeners. We so appreciate you. Until next time, keep lifting leaders.
Bye.